Thank you, Ben. I usually don't struggle with speaking, writing, figuring out how to talk, generally. Any of my teachers here at Prozdor, or my peers, will tell you that, you ask them. But to write this speech, I had to wrestle with myself for quite a while. And in wrestling, I thought of an icon, our patriarch Jacob, the sort of original wrestler. Imagine with me, if you will, it was a dark, windswept night. You're in the middle of the desert, all alone. You send everyone you love and care about away from you, far away, because deep down inside yourself, you know that there's something dangerous coming. And just as you drift off on that night, right into the place between waking and dreaming, there's an attack, and an assailant is on you, and you're pushing back and forth, straining, slamming, struggling. You're pushing yourself right to the breaking point, but you will not give in, because you know somehow that this moment is of profound importance. Your opponent realizes he's at a disadvantage, so he goes for a cheap shot, knocks at your hip, pulls it out of its socket, and you feel the pain race up your leg like a red-hot branding iron, but still, you don't give in. You will triumph. Time goes on. By the morning, your opponent realizes that he can't win. He says, I have to go. You fought too hard to leave empty-handed. So your opponent agrees to give you a new name. You are no longer Jacob. You are Yisrael, the one who wrestles with God. You wake up from your dreamlike state, and you have an epiphany. You have just wrestled with the divine. Then you look up and you see your brother Esau, who you have been fighting with for years, horribly, terribly, and bitterly. Before you long struggle in the night, you might have gone to him, attacked him, struck him to the ground out of bitterness. But now you've had an epiphany. You've realized that all that bitterness is misplaced. You've moved on to a better way of being. I have a lot of sympathy with our patriarch Jacob. I know a lot about hips coming out of their sockets, and I know a lot about epiphanies. When I was 8 years old, my hip came out of its socket, and I had to have orthopedic reconstructive surgery to correct it, or I would have lost the ability to walk. It meant a struggle. It meant painful surgery, 8 weeks bed rest, and then months relearning how to walk. But besides it sucking, it taught me something important. It taught me about the importance of that struggle. It taught me that if you push hard enough, even someone like me can be the master of their own body. That was my epiphany. But it didn't just give me an epiphany, it made me mad. Because I had an image of a god sitting on a cloud throne with a crown and a golden ruby-tipped scepter pointing down at the earth saying, you shall live, you shall die, you shall prosper, you shall not, you shall suffer, you shall have joy. Your body shall be whole, yours shall be broken. You shall have to have hip surgery and you shall feel a lot of pain. I wanted no part of worshiping or engaging with such a God. And I struggled with the ideas related to that kind of God for years. So I arrived at Prozdor, an ardently angry atheist. I had emerged from Prozdor, a somewhat rebellious, humanistic, existentialist theist. And yes, I have studied with Matt Lowe every year I've been here. But that's not all that Prozdor has done. Prozdor has changed me in so many ways. And all of those changes started with one phrase: dialectic process. What is a dialectic process? You have an idea, something that you hold to be true. Another idea comes along and the two ideas clash and struggle with each other, wrestle. And then, all at once there's an epiphany. And they come together, and like Jacob and Esau, they weep on each other's neck, and there's a union, a synthesis, and a new, better, stronger idea is born. That is what Jacob had from wrestling with his assailant. That is what Moses had when God told Moses God's name, and it established a relationship with God, not as a white-bearded man sitting on a throne with a golden scepter, but as the incarnation of an infinite moment of epiphany. That epiphany is what Prozdor helps us to understand. Because in that epiphany is contained the supreme importance of the struggle, the supreme importance of wrestling. Now, when I talk about wrestling, I'm not talking about wrestling for the benefit of thousands of screaming fans in a wrestling ring with slamming bodies and grunting and sweating in the mud of the earth. I'm talking about wrestling in the mud of the mind. That struggle is our legacy. It is the legacy of the children of Israel, the children who wrestle with God. It has been passed down to us from Abraham at Sodom and Gomorrah, to Moses, to the prophets and the rabbis, right down to Herzl and Kaplan. Prozdor helps us to embrace that which has been passed down to us. And it helps us do it in two important ways. The first is by recognizing that we are all individuals. We all have different ways of struggling. For me, it's through ethics, philosophy, study of the text handed down to us by our ancestors and many others. For my sister, it's dance. For others, it's study of film or theater or art or music. We all go about the struggle in different ways. But Prozdor recognizes that and teaches us accordingly. The second thing that Prozdor does is it helps us to realize that unlike Jacob, we are not alone in our struggle. At Prozdor, we are immersed in a community, a kahillah, that gives us an endless pool of strength to draw from in our wrestling. The celebration of that community is why we are here today. Now I tell you, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, friends, leaders, teachers, students, my fellow graduates, as anyone here, the question which Prozdor asks us to develop our Jewish identity, whether you're just starting off at the beginning of Makor, or whether you're moving the development of your Jewish identity out in the big wide world. It can be a daunting prospect. It can be a struggle because you know that developing in your Jewish identity, and by extension, your identity as a person, can be a struggle. You will have to wrestle to do it. You know it. That can be scary. But the thing we know today is that this is not an ending. And that here at Prozdor, we can learn, we have learned, that the fact that it will be a struggle is okay. Because we are the children of Israel. Struggling and wrestling are our legacy. Thank you.
I traveled to Georgia and Alabama.